Dave, thank you very much for joining us. We're going to talk about your book in a bit, but I've just kind of asked before we started, but how's your 2020 been? I'm asking everyone at the minute just to check in on how people are.
I mean, like most people, 2020 has been, it's been a year. It's been a long year. It's been a challenging year. I mean, from a rugby league point of view, as a fan of a team in League One, I thoroughly enjoyed the 3 matches we got to play this year. As a League One columnist for 4020 magazine, that's been quite challenging, trying to write 12 columns about 3 matches. But I think, you've got to take a bigger picture on it, haven't you? I mean, everyone I know is safe. Everyone I know is well. And yeah, I think you have to sort of hold on to those things. And we're nearly done. That's the main thing. We're nearly done. It feels like there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And it does actually feel like, from a rugby league point of view, something will be happening next year. And that's really nice to look forward to.
Yeah, fingers crossed 2021 is a lot better than 2020. You saw 3 games then this year in League One. Not the season you thought you'd have, but how were Coventry looking at this? That obviously changes off the field in terms of the coaching positions, but how were Coventry looking in the early part of the year?
So I saw 2 games in person. So a pre-season friendly against London Broncos reserve team, which the Bears won, and they looked really assured, really settled, considering the squad had only been together a few weeks at that point. They looked really well organised, really settled. They put up a good fight in the first game of the season against Newcastle. Obviously Newcastle, as has been shown by their promotion, they were one of the standout teams in the league going into the season. And then by all accounts, I know they had a battling defeat in their next game, which was an away trip. But yeah, I think the seeds were there for what should have been a really competitive and really interesting season. And I think, the Bears want to be a team that nobody wants to play. The Bears want to be a team that are difficult to play against. They want to be a team that is fit and strong and fighting for the full 80 minutes. And we got glimpses of that in those first couple of games. And it's been really pleasing to see a majority of that squad has signed up again for next year. I think the additions for next year have been really shrewd. So I'm at that point. It almost feels like a bit of a normal year now, because I'm at that point where I'm starting to get excited about next season and get excited about the fact that there's going to be some new faces. There's some rolling over from last year, but yeah, in short, I think we looked competitive. We looked like we were up for it. We looked like there was a strong squad identity being built even in the early stages of the season. So I think if they can capture that in this longer pre-season that we've got and hit the ground running with it, then we might cause a few surprises next year.
We've said plenty of times League One is a strange competition, because you've obviously got the traditional clubs from the Heartlands in combination with a lot of teams like yourselves, like the 2 Welsh clubs and London Scholars from outside. It's a big split in geography and a big split as well in terms of resources. And Coventry seems to be one of those clubs who are doing things the right way in terms of not trying to spend money they haven't got to chase an unattainable dream.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I've been closely involved with the Bears for about 4 years now. And certainly over the course of the 2018 season, that was when I really got to know the people involved in the club a lot more closely. And yeah, one of the biggest things you take away if you have particularly close dealings with the Bears is how well run they are as a business. Like they are always in the black. Every penny is thought out and well spent, and they're going about things in a sustainable way. And I think it's interesting that you look at a club like the Bears, who have not long past their 20th year, and they're still building, they're still growing, and they've got a really bright future ahead of them, I think. And you just compare and contrast that to some of the boom or bust approaches that we've seen from certain franchises and certain teams. The Bears are trying to build a legacy. Look at the money they've got from the World Cup grants. That's all around building youth teams and building a structure and a pathway. And yeah, it's like you say, being a League One and being a League One fan, and sort of having that mixture of I guess, traditional and expansion fans, you do always see dissenting voices out there that see, why the RFL giving money to Coventry and West Wales and all that stuff. But when you look at what those clubs are actually trying to do, it's money well spent, I think. And from a Coventry point of view, we're obviously in a rugby union heartland area. There's only so many places on rugby teams. There's going to be players who miss out. And, I think looking at the Bears, not only as a way of playing sport with an egg-shaped ball where, the ball actually stays in play a bit more and you might touch it a bit more, you might get to do some more interesting things, but actually seeing players like Jason Bass and Joe Batchelor who've come through the Bears and gone up, we're creating a pathway there. We're creating an opportunity to build a career playing rugby. And yeah, it might be a slightly different code than what some people around here grew up with, but it's a really good code. And I think anyone would be at minimum impressed at how the Bears have gone about their business throughout their history and how they're continuing to do it now and what they want to do in the future as well. I think it's really exciting. And, the other expansion clubs in League One have got those ambitions as well. And I think that's the value they bring to the division. Aside from being somewhere different to go, they are looking at things differently. And they are, they've not got 150 years of history to rely on. So they do have to challenge themselves and they do have to be creative. And I think that brings an extra level of excitement to the whole league.
I mean, I don't know too much about Coventry other than I've been there twice. And the Ricoh Arena is a wonderful facility, although the football team obviously don't play there at the moment. But it does seem to be a place which is open to new sports. I mean, I've got a background in watching ice hockey. Obviously, the Blazers have been successful for a long time. They came from nowhere, and I guess the Bears are part of that as well now. It seems to be a city that enjoy sport, and I guess with the World Cup coming next year, it's a great opportunity for rugby league to capitalise on.
It certainly is. Coventry, you're right, is very much a sporting city. I mean, obviously, most people know the football team. As you say, the ice hockey team is a very successful one. 2 rugby union teams in the form of Wasps and Coventry. Speedway has a very proud history in Coventry. Unfortunately, not in the city at the moment, but they had a very successful team. I remember going to watch the basketball team when I was a teenager as well. People in Coventry love sport, love watching live sport, and are happy to embrace sport, and particularly sport for teams that are based in the city as well. And I think looking ahead to the World Cup, I mean, you have to look back to the Four Nations game, a bonfire night, a freezing cold bonfire night, a double-header international of a sport that most people in the area probably haven't seen live before, but people came out for it. And I think that's something that almost gets lost in the narrative of that Four Nations tournament a bit. Is people always moan that it was a double-header in Coventry on a Saturday night and wasn't that poor planning by the RFL. But actually, like, looking at it from a more positive mindset, it was a massive chunk of people who bought tickets from the Coventry and Warwickshire postcode area. The knock-on effect for the Bears was really powerful on that, in terms of more people came to watch the Bears the next season. And it was still a decent crowd. And it set the foundations for the fact that, we are bringing a World Cup game to Coventry next year. And going back even further, I mean, I went to some of the World Cup the Olympic football matches at the Ricoh in 2012, and they were really well attended. And I have every faith that the people of the West Midlands are going to be, even in a normal year, they'd be coming out to watch world-class sport. But following on from a year when we've not been able to watch anything, I think it's an amazing opportunity for the sport to really showcase what it's about to Coventry and the West Midlands. So I think it's even more of a coup to have Australia coming and a home nations team for them to play against. So, we've got a sort of local-ish team to follow in that game in terms of Scotland. We've got the world champions to watch as well. I'm really excited about the World Cup, and I think people here are really, really going to latch onto it and really embrace it.
It is a superb facility, the Ricoh. I don't think we got back to Yorkshire until about 3 a.m. that night, because we stayed very late working after that, the second game of the doubleheader. But it was it's a great facility, and I'm sure the World Cup will be a big success. Just back on League One for a moment. a few changes. You mentioned Newcastle earlier going up to the Championship, but I guess not a surprising decision because they are another forward-thinking club.
Yeah, and I think you look at the was it 5 who applied? You could make a really strong argument for any of them, and I don't think anybody else in League One would have begrudged any of those. But yeah, Newcastle. I mean, I was lucky enough to go up there to watch the Bears play there in the 2018 season. Again, another one of those facilities you can't help but be impressed by. I was really struck by the obvious positive relationship that Thunder have got with their rugby union team as well. You know, it seems very much on an equal footing up there. And you only have to look at the reaction to the World Cup games that are going ahead in Newcastle next year as well. Like that, people in that area, similar to Coventry, they love sport. They love having local teams to follow. And yeah, I think it's brilliant for Newcastle to have that opportunity to show what they're made of at a higher level, because they've always been one of the standout teams in League One for as long as I've been closely involved with the Bears. And yeah, like I said, any of them could have done it, and any of them would have represented what League One is about to a very high standard in the Championship next year. But I think it's particularly exciting that Newcastle have been given the nod on this occasion.
And coming into the competition in West Wales, Gavin Henson and a former Man of Steel in Rangi Chase, they've made some very eye-catching signings for a team who have obviously struggled at the bottom of the table for their history.
They really have, yeah. And I hope those guys can get on the pitch regularly, and I hope they can form some sort of connection and bring a bit of flair and excitement to it, because those names are going to pull people through the door when we are allowed to go through the door. And they're obviously going to be targets, particularly Henson. I think Rangi Chase will have a bit more league nous about himself to look after himself. But Gavin Henson is going to be a target by some of the big men in the middle. But he's a big boy. He can look after himself. And I think, I was even reading stuff about like the prospect of Henson and finally ending up at a World Cup for a rugby match, because he famously never actually made it to a World Cup when he was playing union. I don't know whether that's a bit of a stretch and a bit disrespectful to some of the other players in the Welsh side, but if he stays fit, he's got a great rugby brain. If you've got Rangi Chase performing outside him, throwing all his tricks and doing his usual stuff, there's some potential there for them to have a really interesting set of foundations to build off. And again, with West Wales, like it's easy to look at their results and write them off, but they are making incremental progress. And they've had one of their players have been picked up. I've completely forgotten, which is terrible of me to do this in the interview. I'm completely forgotten who it is and who got picked up by. I think it was by one of the whole sides. But somebody has been plucked from that West Wales team and plopped into a Super League setup. There's some good players there, and it's not going to take that much longer for them to click. So yeah, I think people can write off Henson and Chase as just PR stunts, but if they want to do it, it could be really interesting to see what actually happens there.
Nothing happens overnight, as you say, and Coventry Bears been around for over 20 years now. What first got you involved in rugby league and watching the Bears?
Oh, I mean, involved in rugby league and watching the Bears are kind of two separate stories for me. So I'm from just outside Coventry. I went to school in Coventry. Obviously grew up. Union was the form of rugby I knew, and played that at school and played it at university. And then my third year of university I spent in France, and I was at Perpignan University, and I played for the university team. And because they just don't have anywhere near as much funding as UK universities, we didn't have enough funding to do two teams. So we literally did union one week and league the next week. And I played on the wing because I'm very skinny and very, very breakable. And the year before I played union, I think I'd touched the ball 3 times all season on the wing. I touched it like 6 times in a game when I played league for the first time. I thought, oh, hello, I've misjudged this sport. And then sort of got into it through playing. And then midway through the year, woke up one Saturday morning, went to get a croissant from the local bakers, and was surrounded by lots of sunburnt men from Wigan. And I was very confused. And then remembered that obviously the Catalan Dragons were based there. So started watching it as a fan from that point. Followed the Dragons for a few years. And then really got into the Bears properly when I moved back to the Midlands after university. and the Bears got into League One for the 2015 season. So I went to that first game on a horrendously wet and muddy Good Friday. And so went to a few games over the next couple of years. And then when my wife and I bought a house just outside Coventry, that's what really sparked me to go down regularly. So it was the 2017 season I started going down as a season ticket holder, really. And that's the year I decided to start the podcast, because I got into podcasting by that point and just felt it was a fun way of helping celebrate what the Bears do. And then it all just built out from there, really. So it was quite a natural thing, but also quite an obvious team to pick in the end.
You've got the podcast then, Bear Necessities. You've written the book. Well, you've updated your book forward about the Bears. So tell us a bit about the book and where we can get it.
So the book is it documents the Bears' 20th anniversary season, which was the 2018 season, and it's part season diary and part profile of key people within the club. And it turned out to be a great season. It was the Bears' most successful season since they've gone professional. We got further in the Challenge Cup than ever before. Recorded 2 record attendances over the course of the year, and really notably recorded those first wins against Heartland's team, Keighley and Hunslet. And it was just a really feel-good year, and it became very obvious early in the year that there was an interesting story to tell. So I started writing the book pretty soon on in the season and just kept with it. And then those profiles to break up the season diary are really just interviews with interesting characters from around the club. So people who've been involved for the whole time, some of the players and the coach from that season as well, just to give readers a sense of who else is involved in the club and what other stories are going on behind the scenes, and give people an idea of what things are happening just beyond the results, really. So the original version of the book came out last year, and then obviously this year not really had anything to write about, as I mentioned earlier, and I ended up starting this bonus chapter of sort of summing up what happened in 2019, because when you get to the end of the original book, there's a real sense of, wow, Bears are on the verge of something here, and if they can carry this on into 2019, that could be really special. And then 2019 was a really disrupted year for the Bears. They didn't really have a home. The Butts Park Arena was having its 4G pitch laid for most of the season, so the Bears ended up playing across 3 different grounds as their home ground. The season was pretty disrupted in terms of a fixture list, because League One had 11 teams last season, so there was always one team not playing. They went out the Challenge Cup fairly early, so that sort of there was just never any momentum in the season. And I'm glad I wasn't writing an entire book about 2019, put it that way. But I thought it was interesting to round up what happened next and just tell the next part of the story. And by the time I'd finished writing that, I thought, well, I may as well do a revised edition. So and that's where it went from there, really. And Alan Robinson, the main man at the Bears, he designed me a very nice new cover for it. And yeah, it's available now on Amazon in paperback and Kindle format. So those people who bought the original from me, I've emailed them the new chapter. And if anyone hasn't received that, please do get in touch and I will send it to you. But yeah, I just thought it was a nice thing to do, a nice thing to reflect on what had happened a year on. And yeah, I just wanted something to write about, really.
Yeah, I keep trying to write things, then just give up because I've got no willpower whatsoever. But I guess what we're all hoping for is that 2021 is more like 2018 for the Bears than 2019 and indeed 2020.
Definitely, yeah. I think there's real potential to see progress on the pitch, and then having that World Cup game at the end of it as well. Yeah, there's so much to get excited about next year. A whole season on that new 4G pitch, which will really suit the style of rugby that the Bears like to play. A new coaching team who seem really engaged, really switch on. A few new faces. As always, 2 of the best kits in the division. You can always guarantee that the Bears have excellent kits, and this year is no exception. And then, yeah, World Cup at the end of it. It's going to be a great year.
They are indeed beautiful kits. I must get my hands on one of them at some point. I'm not sure if I'll be able to get down to Coventry in 2021, but I'll certainly try and get to one of the away games up here in the Heartlands, because it's been a while since I've seen the Bears live in action, so I should make sure I do so again in 2021. Dave, very best of luck with the revised version of the book. If people don't get it before Christmas, then obviously spend your Christmas money wisely and make sure you get a copy. It's called Forward.
It is.
It's a simple title to find. Dave, thank you very much for your time. Best of luck for the rest of the year, and fingers crossed 2021's better, and we'll hopefully meet up at some point in the future.
Sounds great. Thanks so much for having me.